Welcome
to the joy of coding.
Hello, and welcome to episode 274 of The Joy of Coding. My name is Mike Conley. Happy New Year. It's 2022. I hope you had a great New Year. I hope you're doing well. Things are a little bit different around here. I don't know if you noticed, my green screen is gone. And I have a new camera. Special shout out to Andy from the Air Mozilla team who supplied me with a brand new camera, and it has a number of powers which I think is going to be pretty useful. One of the things it does is it automatically tracks my head using some, I guess, machine learning to detect who I am, and then it's got like gesture recognition. So there, I can know to zoom out, and you can see my really messy basement, and zoom back in if we want to do a tight shot. Yeah, it's working out nicely. And so, I know I tend to move around a lot whenever I'm working. Like maybe if I'm working on my tablet or something, I'll be over here, and then, I might go out of frame. So this will help with that. It'll help keep me in frame. So new toys. And I decided to not do the green screen this time, simply because my green screen's not large enough to accommodate, the camera moving around so much. You'd see leakage. So anyways, let's get started. What are we doing? There's Wacky Morning DJ. Here's the agenda. What? No, that's not the agenda. It's here. Here's the agenda. It's January 12th, 2022. A reminder, no plan survives breakfast. I don't exactly know what I want to do today, or at least I don't know how it's going to go down. I have some neat infos I want to go through, and we might be able to get through all of those. And then, because I haven't done this in a while, I don't know if I've said this before, but live streaming is a little bit of there's a physical toll, both on my voice and on my brain. And so because I haven't done this in I'd say about a month. Yeah, last one was December 15th. My stamina will probably start running out in about an hour. So I might cap it at about an hour. So this will be a slightly shorter one. Simply because, I need to build up my stamina again. Anyway, this is the agenda. No plan survives breakfast. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how far I get. And that's the first thing. The second thing is that the agenda that we're looking at, this handy-dandy agenda, is something that you have access to. If you're watching this on Air Mozilla, check out the video details section over here, that way. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's in the video description. It should be down there. And for the folks on Twitch, let me just quickly copy the episode guide here. Almost opened a black hole. Here we go. Wait, nope, that's the episode guide. Nope, that's the wrong link. I apologize. Where's the episode guide? Or where's the agenda, rather? I pasted the wrong link, folks. It's agendas. It's this one. I really should link to that agenda from the Joy of Coding page. Did I may have put the wrong link in. But anyways, there it is. I've updated the Slack, or the Slack message. See? The brain. Still getting used to live streaming and thinking out loud. I've updated the link that I put into the chat for you fine folks on Twitch. There you go. So what did we want to do? Well, the first thing I want to do is talk briefly about the episode guide. The episode guide is a completely viewer-driven resource for viewers of The Joy of Coding who maybe want to know what happened in the past. If you're watching this in the past, maybe you want to know what happened during this particular episode, and the episode guide is a great way of sort of getting that information, having a resource that you can search through, leaf through, and flip back and forth and see what episodes tickle your fancy. And the episode guide is completely viewer-driven. Viewers just like you contribute to it, and I actually have some pull requests that we can take a look at today. And maybe I'll start there. So, as usual, special thanks goes to Smurf D, who contributed a lot of these changes, all of these changes, rather, episodes 271 through 273. So let's check those out real quick. So, episode 271. It happened on November the 24th. That is correct. 2021. And that all those links look correct. And what did we talk about? It was the winter holiday episode. No. We were I was sort of listing out ideas for the winter holiday episode. We ended up doing the Code Rush one. I rewatched parts of it. I apologize. There was a bit of echo throughout the whole thing because I wasn't wearing headphones and I should have been. My microphone was picking up the sounds from my laptop. And I apologize for viewers of that stream who maybe were disappointed by that. And I played that game that I had made when I was younger, and we went through a bunch of neat infos, which is what we're going to be doing today. So this all looks good. This looks right. Thumbs up there, Smurf D. The next episode was December 1st, which was episode 272. That looks correct. All those links look correct. We're, again, going through neat infos. That's kind of the recurring theme here, going through neat infos. But maybe we'll get to work on some bugs soon, because I'd like to start doing that again. But I know some of you find the Bugzilla stuff very interesting, watching me sort of, like, the thing about neat infos and going through neat infos is it's like a faster, we go through topics more quickly, because it's like a list of a variety of topics, and that seems to interest some people. So I'll keep doing that if you're interested, but I do want to work on some bugs as well. So this all looks good. I'm going to merge this pull request. Thanks. Always thank your contributor. Thank you, Smurf D. So that's merged in, and we're going to merge in the other one as well, which is 273. And there's also Dependabot just sent me a pull request, so I'll take a look at that. This was the holiday episode 270. Oh, yeah, that. Hold on a second. There's a problem here. Hold on. Holiday episode was actually 273. This should be 273 here, so we're gonna fix that. That's why we review. So 273, and what else is in here? December 15th. Yeah, that looks right. That looks right. Very special holiday episode, and I gave links to Code Rush and we talked about that game I made when I was learning to program. Okay, the rest of this looks good. Fix an episode numbering typo. Commit directly. And then we will merge that in. Wait, what? Hold on. I thought I just changed that. Episode, didn't I just change it? Fix an episode. Yeah, 273. There it is. I don't know why it was not showing the fix. So we're going to merge that in. Thanks. And so the episode guide should now be up to date, which is very nice. Thank you. I'm also going to, I guess, pull in this. I guess we use NumPy for some of the automated transcription stuff I used to do, but I'll merge it in anyways. It seems fine. Dependencies, right? What are you going to do? All right. So what are the actual things I want to do today? I want to go through the neat infos. So the first neat info is this one. Whoops. This is start preloading content processes early during startup. This was filed 5 years ago, actually. And then 2 days ago, Randall Jessup info'd me on this. We create pre-allocated so let me take a look at this profile, and maybe that will help illustrate what is being seen, what is being described here. So it looks like this is a very old startup profile from 5 years ago. And on this machine, Ason filed a bug saying like, whoa, we wait like a long time, like 20, how much time is this? The scale is wrong here. I guess this is from an older, oh, no, the scale's not wrong. I'm just zoomed in, full range. We wait 23 seconds before we launch the very first content process 5 years ago. Well, actually, content process 4 opened first, so it was more like, yeah, 23 seconds, and that's way too long. You know, in that time, we're waiting for the user will be not able to see any web content because you need the content processes to do that. Why are we waiting so long? And Randall says, I can imagine that we made some progress here or knew our limitations better in the meantime. Because, yeah, a lot of time has passed since 5 years ago. In particular, Fission shipped, and we have something called the content process pre-scheduler or like scheduler or pre-allocator. Yeah, the pre-allocated processes. So we create pre-allocated processes off of main thread idle, though since starting a process can take a couple of hundred milliseconds, the fact that we've been idle for, say, 20 milliseconds may not be a good indicator that it's a good time to start pre-allocated process creation. We've already created the window skeleton by the time we instantiate the pre-allocated process manager, and a while later we call enable, which calls allocate after delay, which eventually calls allocate on idle. Allocate after delay imposes a 1-second delay before looking for idle time. This was set a while ago, and of course it's probably too long for high-end machines and perhaps too short for low-end machines, assuming it's still applicable. And then I'm asked for my thoughts. And all he says, I assume at that point we've usually created at least one child process for the foreground tab, and then we will create more processes when needed. And if we create the rest of the pre-allocated child processes on idle, the setup sounds quite reasonable to me. We don't want to create pre-allocated child processes while we're very busy with other stuff, I think. Correct. The question is 1 second after the first get browsing context call a good time to start looking for idle to start pre-allocating more content processes? We create the first content process at the same point we start the 1 second pre-allocated timer when we create a load context and do get browsing context. These are called from setup initial browser and tab. And so the question would be, is when we call setup initial browser and tab a good point, or should we try to create a process earlier so it's available hopefully at that point, at the risk of slowing down other startup stuff that might be visible? Good question. We create the first content process at the same time we start the 1 second pre-allocation timer when we create a load context and do get browsing context. That's a good question. So you don't want to wait too long, because then we have to wait that extra overhead of launching the content process while the parent isn't doing anything. So this is, I think, this is basically a scheduling question. You know, like when is the convenient time for? Oh, Danny Colon is pinging. Pong. Hopefully you see that. When is a convenient time to? I hope you're pinging Danny Colon because I hope everything's working okay. If you can't hear me or things are going wrong, please let me know. So this is a scheduling sort of question of when's a convenient time to launch the content process. Oh. In my mind, so here I'll write my thoughts. What I'm going to write. So basically, here's my thinking. At the very beginning of starting a program like Firefox, and Firefox is a very large program. If you look at just the libzul DLL, it's many megabytes. The Firefox.exe, the executable itself, is not that large. Here, let me open up my Windows machine for a second, and we can examine some. Hang on, I gotta connect to my Windows machine. And I say I'm choosing my Windows machine because oftentimes when we're doing startup performance analysis, we think about our Windows machine. And it looks like my Windows machine restarted itself to apply a Windows update in the night. Amazing. Yeah. Okay. So give me a second here. Let me bring this over. Okay. So let us look at let's look at my instance of Firefox actually. Oh, there's my VM. Okay. Oh, everything's launching. Okay. Hold up. Let's look at my instance of Nightly and go to the file location. So the actual executable, this is a recent build. I think it's January 11th. Excuse me. So it's yesterday's build of Nightly. Is not large. I don't know if you can see this. I don't know. Can I increase the font? No. But that it's only it's about half a meg, which these days is not large at all. So also is, so apparently the Matrix Bridge bot might not be working correctly. Apologies if it's not working correctly. I'll look at it after the stream. Hopefully we can sort of get that sorted out for next episode. Apologies. So the people in the Twitch chat might not see the sort of conversation. Oh, they can see it on Twitch. They can see it on Twitch. It's working. It's working. It appears to be working, apparently. Anyways, so it's about half a meg, the exe itself, but the actual the mass, the most of the mass is in this library called zool.dll, and this thing's 117, roughly 117 megs. It's very large, and that's where the vast majority of the Firefox code actually is. Now, there's some other stuff that's split out, like in omni.ja. That's where like you're gonna find all of the JavaScript and CSS and image assets and whatnot. Now we have to read off the disk. But when it comes to like launching the binary of Firefox.exe, this thing is critical. And a lot of work has gone into like trying to optimize it and organize it so that it's packed correctly and organized internally in an efficient way. But there's still a period of time where you're just having to slurp a bunch of stuff off of the disk, and you're waiting for that to occur. And so when you don't want to be competing too much for disk, if two things are requesting disk at the same time and they're at two different locations of the disk, depending on how the operating system schedules it, in the worst case, what you end up with is like the read head of a spinning platter, of your hard drive, then the read head kind of flipping back and forth in the worst case. And it could be traveling large physical distances in order to read these things. Now, I believe disk drivers and operating systems these days do a better job sort of scheduling, preloading, warming up to avoid these reads on disk. But that's the kind of thing we're having to think about when it comes to startup and launching executables, if we're talking about startup performance. And so, yeah, it's a question of timing. Because if you launch both Firefox.exe and start reading libzool off of the disk, and then you also very soon after launch a content process, one might end up slowing down the other. Because like the first thing we need to do is we need to paint the browser UI. And you don't actually need a content process to do that. We need to paint a browser UI so that the user knows that they've launched a thing. We've gotten a lot better at presenting the UI more quickly. Like we paint more quickly these days, which is good. It makes sure that they have confidence that it's like actually launching. What you don't want to see is like a thing bouncing in the dock, or like you click on it and you double click on the icon in Windows and just like you see the hourglass or something for seconds. Like that is not responsive. We want to present something to the user like as quickly as we can. So as soon as we paint seems like a good time. Let me try and like write these thoughts down. So in my mind, the order of the priority should be, the priority of process launch as startup should be something like parent process, compositor process, and then content process, like networking process, you also need the web extension process, networking process, where we need the first two in order, where I believe we need the first two in order to present anything to the user on screen. Once that paint is done, we should do our best to get the content processes, the content and web extension process launched, because after we paint, present anything to once that the paint of the browser UI is done, we should do our best to get the content web extension processes launched, because that's going to block presenting either the default about home or whatever homepage the user has set. After that, we can take advantage. We should probably after that, I think 1 second is probably a fine amount of time to start waiting for idle for more content process launching. We might be getting a little off of the target of this bug. The original profile is 5 years old, and the startup pathways of Firefox have changed significantly. When is where is it? This function that Randall was talking about, set up initial browser and tab. When's that called? That happens inside of the init function, gbrowser init function. Whoops, gbrowser init, which happens whenever we are done loading the DOM, which makes some sense. Looking at the source of and surrounding, it looks like we call into that once the DOM of the initial window has been loaded. And that's probably the right place. That's probably the right place. My worry about loading it any sooner is getting in the way, is accidentally having it get in the way of presenting the browser UI, which is the first priority when launching. Okay, so that's my comment. All right, let's look at another neat info. Expose a property NSI browser parent can present to indicate when a tab is set up enough to paint something. We currently, this is from 5 years ago again, so I guess they're going through old bugs. We currently use this hack in tab browser .xml, not anymore, where we check to see if a tab is presented before in order to know if we can force paint and do an async tab switch. If it's not presented and is still showing the tab throbber, we assume that we can show a blank content area and do a very fast tab switch. This works in a few cases, but falls over when a background tab is showing the throbber for a while and the user clicks on it. This shows a brief but annoying white flash. What I think we should do instead is have a new tab child inform the parent when it has set itself up and when the underlying top-level press child has enough information to potentially paint where it required. Do we still want this? I actually think we have something here. I think we have something called like has layers. Hang on. Has layers. And it was 72, and I added it in a bug earlier than when this stuff landed. Can present has set up enough to paint something. Maybe has layers isn't enough information. Like, we have something that's like has presented. Potentially paint were it required. If the layers are being rendered and the compositors report receiving them. So that's after having rendered them. I see. Change the name. Do we still want this? I think this might be nice to have someday as a to improve the tab switching performance, since it means we can do we can more aggressively force paint when switching tabs. Switching to tabs that the user has never seen before. I think this might be nice to have someday. All right, yeah. So I'm gonna say, yeah. I think that's the answer to I think I've answered the question. I think it would be useful to have someday if they've ever got time. Which, who knows? Clicking 2 times on Save to Pocket button inside Reader mode sometimes opens a different dimension pocket window. Screen recording attached. Let's check it out. Oh, from Reader mode. Oh, wow. Yeah. What happened there? It just gets big. And then they've got a regression range. Make it more obvious where panels are anchored to. Really? That's the regressor? Regressor? Regressor. I'm skeptical that that's the regressor. All right, well, let's see if we can still reproduce it. They're experiencing it on Windows 10. So let's launch our, what I'll do actually is I will use, mock Moz regression launch, and that's going to grab the latest nightly. I think I didn't pass any arguments. I think it's supposed to grab the latest nightly. Now, because I haven't run mock Moz regression for a while on this machine, it might actually do. Yeah, it just updates itself. So I have to run it again. Hey, I have a question for people here who maybe, come on, launch, who maybe know OBS a bit better. Oh, I guess I do have to give it a date. Okay, 2022, January 12th. Right, run today's. For the people who know OBS better than I do, if you are on Mac OS, one of the things I've been looking at getting access to is a plugin that allows me to remove the background without having to use a green screen. So, I thought that might be a better solution rather than having an actual green screen. I thought this would be something we could try as a way of, being a little more flexible with, camera movement and stuff. And I've got the downloaded file for this plugin, but I can't seem to get OBS to detect it. So I've put it in a variety of places. Like I follow the instructions on the releases page per its suggestion, and I tried putting it in this folder, and then I restart OBS, and it does not find it. Like if I go inside of the video settings or the filters, and I open the drop down to show various filter options, I don't see it, the background removal setting. And I'm curious to know if anyone's ever had success with this on Mac OS in particular. I guess this is for building. I mean, I haven't tried building it myself. Maybe I could try that. It's a little unfortunate, but for installing it, yeah, I tried this. I also tried this. This was another option for you. And yeah, if people know how to make this work, let me know on Mac OS in particular, because I couldn't get it to be detected. All right, what are we talking about here? Oh, right, I had launched this thing. Let's see if we can reproduce it ourselves. So we're gonna open this in Pocket, or in Reader mode rather. We're gonna hit this Pocket button and just keep spamming it. So I'm not seeing it yet. Scooby-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Are there any other instructions to this? They're seeing it on 97, 96, and 95. So they saw it on a build from a couple of days ago. Saved Pocket closes. Saved Pocket dropdown is opening up with a different window size. Note that the issue is intermittent. Yeah, it's not clear to me how this change set would have introduced that problem. Like, yes, it is true that this patch did change some rules regarding the styling of the panels. But it's for the notification pop-up box and not for the like it changed the styling of a panel, but not the it only like deals with these. It shouldn't have affected the other ones. So I can't see this having an effect on it either. Okay, so I'm gonna request information from the reporter. Hi, Alexandru. The regression range you identified, are you certain? I looked at the patch, looked at the change, and I can't see how it could have introduced this. The style changes it introduces are for other panel types, permission panels, for example, and should not have affected the Pocket panel at all. When you reproduce the issue, do you happen to see any errors in the browser console? Okay. SmurfD says, is SearchFox aligned with your color scheme? Yeah, they've got dark mode on SearchFox now. It's very nice. I'm pretty sure if you can override in DevTools if you don't want the application to use dark mode. I think there's a way you can like turn that off. Or like you can tell it to simulate different modes. Like what's the light mode? Yeah, here we go. Toggle. Oh, there we go. This is light mode, dark mode, light mode, dark mode. Yeah. And so when it detects that, I guess it's using the there's a CSS media selector which detects whether or not I'm using dark mode in my browser, and then it applies this set of rules, which is really nice. That's recent. And it sounds like Yeah, prefers color scheme. That's the one. And it sounds like I've got... So the plugin, this is not a VST plugin though, I don't think. VST is a particular plugin type for like signal processing, if I remember correctly. I mean, from my music training, virtual studio technology. Yeah, it's for music production. This is not one of those plugins. This is a different kind of plugin, and I don't exactly know what kind it is. Plugin maker, plugin main. Like, does it say what it is? It's a portrait background filter plugin. And does it like say, does it like declare anything? Get name, background removal. Like, I guess I could build this thing and try and like mess with it a little bit, but I really don't want to. I want it to just work. So if anyone has any tips on where I could put that stuff, let me know. You can rate this episode and put in your rating. You can tell me what I need to do, what I'm doing wrong, specifically for Mac OS. You know, a lot of the instruction manuals and videos I've seen of people using this thing, they're all on Windows. So do we know if this thing even works on Mac OS? Has anyone used it on? I mean, clearly the author has. You can see here in this image. So, I don't want to bug this author with my support request. So if someone out there happens to know where I need to put it or what I need to do I have to tell OBS, to scan for plugins? Do I have to do that? I've got the latest version of OBS Studio. So there you go. All right, what's next? I've need info the reporter on this, so let's move on. Let's go to this bug now. Oh, not a Google search. The pip window is not correctly displayed after resizing it from the min size. I think I've seen this before. If you like shrink the window down to like its absolute minimum size, then the aspect ratio locking will fail. Like the will get stuck in aspect ratio locking. So we could look at that maybe today. I got neat info on that by Michelle Goosens 8 days ago. And it's a P3, or rather a P4. But I could briefly take a look at it. Oh, apparently someone has... If you're on macOS and having this problem, you're probably on a case-sensitive file system, and so the SO file got put in plug instead of plug-ins. And you'll notice the two directories like this. Move OBS removal to the plug-ins directory with capital I, and it will pop up. At least it did for me. Oh, interesting. All right, well, I can try that later. And that... What? Why would they do that? Plug-ins versus plug-ins? Why did they do that? All right. We will check it out. Thank you very much, Danny Colon. I will take this under advisement. We can put this here. Maybe a way of getting my OBS background removal plugin working. I shouldn't say it's mine. I'm going to say the. And that plugin is this one. And if it works well, I'm excited to try it. I hope it doesn't make my machine too busy, but if it works, that'd be great. And I will... Oh, it's a Unix-like file system. Very good. Perfect. Okay, so we can look at this today maybe as, as... Because is this something that I think we can reproduce on... It's a Windows problem. So... Yeah, let's test it out. Let's see if we can reproduce it. Play a random video. Here's how McDonald's French fries are made. Okay. It's an ad. Don't look at the ad. Okay, skip the ad. Okay, we're gonna watch this thing in picture-in-picture, and now I'm gonna scrunch this thing down, and then yeah, that's what happens. Look at the weirdness happens. And it's probably related to how, like, the aspect ratio locking gets overridden by the minimum window dimensions in one dimension. And so what we should probably do is, you know, allow the window to get small to the point where it's able to maintain the aspect ratio. So we can look at that today. Let's see if we can make that improvement. But before we do, I want to go through the last bits of these neat infos. So that was, what was it? 215. So we're going to go to this one now. Overlapped videos, can't get picture-in-picture opened on them. Can I still reproduce it? Let's find out. Ensure picture-in-picture is enabled. Visit the test case in this bug. Test case. Why did I obsolete it? Interestingly, the output works on its own, but the JSBin editor does not. Okay. So what's the bug? Visit the test case. Hover either video. Notice the toggle appears and becomes fully opaque when the toggles are hovered. The toggles should cause us to enter picture-in-picture when clicked. Nothing occurs on click. Okay, let's see. Oh, that works. That works. Yeah, I got a feeling this got fixed. Somehow this is fixed. Yeah. Somehow this got fixed. Closing this out as works for me. Amazing. I love it whenever we get freebies like that. Who knows what fixed that thing? And dragging the tab header out of Firefox window fails and makes tab header unresponsive if raced with get user media. This is from a month ago. Yeah, right. That's the regression range, of course, because it introduced it. And the steps, open this in a second tab. Or maybe I'll do this. If this is going to, from window fails, it makes tab header unresponsive if raced with get user media. Okay. I'm going to open this in a new browser instance. Let me open up a new terminal. I should have, what do I have checked out here? Yeah. Let's build this real quick. What happens? So this gets opened, allow the permission prompt, refresh the page, and then while the page is loading in one swift motion, drag the tab heading downward and release to create a fresh window. The tab should become a new window. The tab pops back to where it was and doesn't want to be dragged again. It also refuses to be closed or dragged horizontally now. Clicking and dragging a different tab heading seems to snap it out of it. I see. So I suspect this is because a drag session gets persisted. And I think I remember seeing something like this get fixed recently. I'm just going to quickly check my email because this sounds very familiar. Drag session. Move tab to this window. Oop. Ironic that failed. Okay, tab detached unexpectedly after click on master password dialog. And what was the solution to this one? No, this is not what I was thinking of. This is not what I was thinking of. There's a different problem. Cancel, drag. Tab, drag, drop issues. 2 years ago. Ah, here it is. I'm reasonably hopeful and drags on creating new dialogue windows. I wonder if this may have fixed it. So where is the bug? Where is the... Is it in this window? This is blocked on I need info for the reporter. Yeah, 1740338. 1740338. Don't need my email open anymore. Could also be related to bug, which is now fixed. Well, before we need info, Jib, about this, let's see if we can reproduce it ourselves. We have our... does it matter what operating system? I don't think it matters what operating system we're on. So let's launch this and let's try reproducing it. Okay, we're gonna go here. In a second tab, click allow in the permission prompt if you get one, and then refresh the page. While the page is loading, drag the tab heading downward and release to create a fresh window. Okay. Now reload. Still works. Reload. Let's try that again. Reload. Now notice it's not bringing up the indicators for me. But that's because it's hidden. Oh, getting some feedback now because it's replaying it, which is now fixed. That should. What's likely going on here is that a drag session isn't being ended properly. Bug 1544167's patch made it so that when new windows open, drag sessions get canceled. Jib, are you still able to reproduce this? This may have been fixed by such and such. Fixed by the patch for... are you still able to reproduce this? All right. Now what I should have been doing in the background is getting this a binary build ready. Actually, where am I in the source tree? January 4th. Well, that's not so bad. All right, let's see if we get how quickly we can get a binary build going here. I don't think we have the problem with picture-in-picture on Mac OS. So let's see what that's like. Because I think it handles its own aspect ratio locking, and like, yes, it causes like the controls to be all wonky because we run out of space, but it doesn't do that sort of weird behavior. Yeah. We eventually run out of, like, we crunch down so much and then it's just like useless. So yeah, it's more of a Windows issue. Okay, so this is gonna take a while. We have to go get Clang. We might not be able to get to this one, but maybe we can at least look at the source code. So on, if I remember correctly, the window aspect ratio stuff is controlled here. There's a lock aspect ratio thing, which when you call it, it records the aspect ratio and stuffs it in this member. And right, when you're resizing the window, if we're resizing the window by script, we allow it to do that, and then we re-record the new aspect ratio. Okay. Now, how about if the user is sizing, if they're sizing the window, we do this calculation. And what's going on here is new height. If the I'm trying to remember how all this works. If the left, right, bottom, top, left. So if you're choosing the corners, then we're basically changing the anchor point, I think, here. And where here we, in this function, what is this function? On window position changed. It's possible that the size of the window is changed such that it violates the aspect ratio constraint. If so, queue up an event to enforce the aspect ratio constraint and repaint when resized with Windows arrow snap. We are in the not resizing state. Who wrote this? I wrote this. So, when we're moving the window, that's if we're moving the window. And what about otherwise? I guess it's just when we're anchoring. Oh, here. New width. This is when we calculate the actual dimensions. I see. So let's go back to our my Rust build. My Rust compiler is too old. So that's going to exit in a second. I have to run bootstrap. Here, let's just pull up Lo-Fi Girl. Okay, so if we're changing the width, what happens is eventually we get stopped. We get stopped when we're changing the width. If we're changing the height, that's when things go wrong. We have to be changing the height. But if we change the width, we get stopped correctly. It's when we change the height, things fall apart. All right. Now, why is that? When we change if we're choosing, we're following basically through here. New height. We get the rectangle. What we need to do here, I think, is make sure that the minimum window dimension is enforced by the smallest dimension which in this case will be the yeah, I guess we have to find out which one's the smaller one. And then make sure that that one is actually set to the minimum window size. And what is the min size? Min size. Get min max info. Who sets the minimum size? Size constraints. Oh, Moz widget. Is there a Moz widget min size? Whoops. Moz widget min size. No, we have only max size. It's as big as we'll let it be. All right. All right, so who uses this thing? Size constraints. Set size constraints. So in this particular case, this is being if it's a Zool, I might get Zool min size. Min size 0, 0. That I see. Get Zool min size. Display min size. What is that? I don't know what any of that means. Metrics, box metrics. So I think what we need to do is we need to figure out what Windows thinks its minimum size is for the player window. And maybe that's something we actually define in CSS. Minimum oh, that's control items, but we might actually have some control over the minimum size here. I'm starting to remember some of this stuff. Like, I think there was something in player.js which sets a minimum. Compute and set minimum size. So here we do this only on Linux. I wonder if we could do something like this also on Windows. Maybe we can just reuse this stuff. Let's find out. You know what? We might not actually need a full-blown binary build to just test that. I see a bunch of chatter. Sorry, I haven't been looking at it. Is your Rust rusty? What does NS stand for here? NS is the... You'll see a lot of prefixes. And oh yeah, someone already answered. Netscape. Yes, NS was the prefix that was used for lots of the old components, because back in the day, you know, or rather, like, I can list a bunch of stuff that starts with NS, not just doc shell, but like anything that's got NS underscore in front of it. Most things that have NS as a prefix, that's like a very hacky way of doing namespacing back in the day before C++ supported namespacing. Nowadays we do have namespacing, but that was a way of sort of like namespacing your code, which is also very confusing because there are other things that have NS for their namespaces, like in Objective-C and like Mac OS code, you have things like NS integer. And that's for new step, or next step rather, not new step, next step. NS stands for next step, which was the machine that Cocoa and Mac OS was originally, like the whole system for Mac OS was designed for, was next step. So a lot of the underlying infrastructure has its own NS prefixing, and that is unrelated to the NS prefixing that you'll see in the rest of Firefox code. Very confusing. Yeah, 20-year-old code. NS. Some of it is, and like some of the prefix code is quite old, but actually it's not like it's old and dead or anything. Like a lot of it is maintained. Like DocShell, for example, is actively maintained and refactored and cleaned up. But we keep the NS prefix because we've got more important things to do than just rename everything. So thankfully, there's not too much code in the code base that's like 20 years old or anything, and dusty and untouched and misunderstood. That's not to say there isn't any. There are little bits here and there that are very mysterious, but for the most part, it's understood. Okay, so what I wanted to do, hang on a second. Hang on. Ignore. What is happening here? Close. Sublime is asking me for a license. I need to upgrade my Sublime license, so let's use Vim instead. I wanted to see whether or not I can manipulate the picture-in-picture player window minimum, compute, and set minimum size. So let's comment this early return out for now. Actually, yeah, mock build faster, and let's see how this changes things. Doubtwriter asks, "There's a matrix bridge? No bridge noise." I don't know if that's a good thing or not. I presume that's like a young person's way of saying cool. Is there also a free open source software viewing solution? I mean, yeah. I mean, the Matrix server that we're using, I believe, is the one from what do they call Vector? I believe that's open source. The viewing tool we're using is called Element. Yeah, like instead of using the Twitch viewer, you can use Element or any. There's a whole host of like Matrix clients that you could use to view the chat. Here's a whole bunch of them. Matrix.org/clients. And then where you want to go, if you go to the agenda that I linked to, there's instructions on how to join the chat if you want to join the Mozilla Matrix server and join the live hacking channel. So yeah, any one of these. I think a bunch of these are open source. Probably all of them for that matter. React Native client for iOS and Android. NeoChat, Hydrogen. Yeah, lots of choices here. A variety of maturity too. Some of them are like little experiments. Some of them are probably pretty far along. Some of them are command line only. If you like WeChat, you could use that. Now I haven't. Smurfy asked YouTube. So you're asking about viewing, not chat. So yes, there are a couple of other choices. If you go to mikeconley.ca/JOC, I give you three choices. You can either watch on Twitch, or you can watch on Air Mozilla, or you can watch on YouTube. I broadcast to all three. Or you can, so you're welcome to choose any one of these. It's to give you choice and to have redundancy, because sometimes things fall over. What was I doing? Right. So here we have our instance of Firefox. I wanted to test to see whether or not we can influence the minimum size of the window. So let's open up this Iron Man clip. Sure. Don't sue me, Disney. It's not my video. Okay. So we do this. And now if I think before what we were doing, oh, see, no, that does not work. That does not work. I saw it squishing. Now we have actually changed the minimum size of the window. We were actually able to get it to be a bit bigger than it's supposed than originally. But then that stuff's broken. So I think we might have a path forward here in the code in here. Compute and set minimum size. And we compute the aspect ratio. If the width is minus the height, then the result width equals the min width. And the result height is we take the width and we divide it by the aspect ratio. And then we set. So maybe on what happens if we double this on Windows? I'm just messing around. I'm really just messing around right now, just to see what happens. Danny Colin says, you can embed air.mozilla.org videos? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. When you share it, that's one of the options. Okay. Let's go back to YouTube. Okay, open this thing up. Can I get this thing? All right, that works pretty well. Now, why, whenever I had it in half, was it squishing too much? I wonder if we need to fine-tune this for Windows. You know what I'll do is I'll keep this open. I'm going to open a new terminal. Yep. If we tune this, so 120 and 80 was too small. So let's try and let's just try 100 and 100. See what happens there. And, you know, this might fall over for certain videos that, like, we have to try the portrait style videos as well. Okay. So if I grab this from the bottom, grab it from the side. Oh, see, that caused it to squish, and then the aspect ratio changed. So come on, what happened here? I think we calculated it wrong. Let's open up our dev tools and see what's going on. Okay. So put this aside. Open this in picture-in-picture. Okay. Now, how big is this window? Let's do some math here. Window.inner height is 143. Inner width, 254. So our aspect ratio, if I remember correctly, where's the... How do you calculate aspect ratio again? Of course, it's in the code I was just looking at. It's over here. It's width divided by height. So, whoops. So width divided by height, 254 divided by 143. So we have an aspect ratio of 1.776. Okay. And now what if we look at the browser window, or the player window itself? We've got a minimum width of 178 and a minimum height of 100. So what happened was, I guess we chose this one as the smaller one. And what is the aspect ratio there? 178 divided by 100, width divided by height. 1.78. So I think what we're dealing with is like this compounding rounding error. Maybe. It's like we shrink it, and then it's fine. See, if I did it slowly, it's fine. Okay. Oh. No, I'm not sure if this is working like I thought, so hold on. Okay. Grab the bottom, grow, shrink, grow, shrink. That's fine. Grab the side, grow. And what happens is we reach some kind of minimum where, like, player window. 178, 100 again. And what are the dimensions of it? Oh. So that's interesting. The minimum height and minimum width. Oh, wait, minimum width. 178, 194, 100, 139. So that's why it's not behaving. And then we reach some kind of threshold where probably we reach the width being hitting the limit. I see. Because the result height the aspect ratio can be a positive or negative number. If the width is less than the height, then we know that the number is going to be, wait, can it be, sorry, not a negative number. It can be a number greater than 1 or less than 1. Right. So it can be like a multiplier or a like divider, that sort of thing. But it has to be greater than 0. Now, if the width is less than the height, then the number will be less than 1. And then doing this, divide a negative, or not a negative number, divide by a number that is less than the height. See, I'm having trouble with words. But if you're doing a divide, if you're doing fractions, here, hold up. I need to write this out. I have it in my head, but I'm having a hard time explaining it. Hold on. Here. Let me draw this out. You can follow me over here to the drawing board. Okay. What I think is happening is you've got some number x, or I'll use w, divided by height, width divided by height. And that number we know is less than 0. And then what we end up doing is we say, well, we're going to say the new height, or the new width rather, with prime is the minimum width. And then we say the new height is the minimum width divided by this calculation. But if this number is less than 1, what we end up doing is, I believe classic fractions like invert and multiply. So I think that number actually ends up getting bigger. That's what I think happens. Like if you divide something by a value greater than or less than 1, you get a larger number. So what I think ends up happening is the height ends up getting... Oh wait, maybe that's okay. Is that okay? Divide by something, you get a larger number. The result height. Maybe that's okay. Because the width is still the minimum it was supposed to be, and that's what we're trying to enforce. And then the height ends up being larger than the width, which is fine. That's what we expected. So maybe that's not a problem. Woo! Oh, someone says that the links in the agenda does not work. Since aspect ratio is width by height, if you divide it by it's the same as multiplying by height underscore height over width. That's right. Right. Larger number. Larger number, yo. Basic mathematics. Now, in the event that width is greater than or equal to height, what we'll do is we'll take the height and our aspect ratio will be a number greater than 1. And so that should cause the width to be larger than the height. What are the values being passed to compute and set minimum size? The outer width and the outer height of the window after it gets created. Now, I was using the inner width and inner height before. Let me just quickly check the outer widths and outer height. Brain. Yeah, they match, and that's not surprising. There's not a whole lot of window decoration going on here. And that width divided by outer height is 13956. Was I doing a height? 254. I was doing a height divided by width. What? Hang on. What is... All right. Aspect ratio calculation. You take your height. You divide the height by the width. This is wrong. This is wrong. Aspect ratio is supposed to be height divided by width. Right? I guess so long as we're all in agreement. Like, where does the other aspect ratio calculation occur? Toolkit, components, picture-in-picture, picture-in-picture.jsm. Aspect ratio. Where do we calculate that? Width divided by height. Okay, so that's how we've been doing it everywhere. So maybe I'm freaking out over nothing. Width divided by height. And what do we do in the NS window thing? Height divided by width. Height divided by width. I don't know if that's a problem yet, because it's just a multiplier. But I do find it strange that we're using different calculations and figuring out different ratios in different ways in different places. Huh. All right. Something for me to dig into. I'm going to have to call it there, though. I'm getting tired. I can tell. Like, my mouth is starting to feel like I'm speaking through sludge. So hopefully next week, whenever I do this again, I'll have a little more stamina. I might even have an answer for you here with what's going on with aspect ratios and why calculating it is so different in different places. We might actually have a CSS rule that we could use instead. Sets preferred aspect ratio for the box. I wonder if we could like reuse this. Replaced elements, aspect ratio, inherit. Here it uses width divided by height. We might be able to use some of this stuff. At your width. At your height. And that way maybe we can get rid of some of this like native stuff and just kind of rely on our layout system. That might be interesting. Something worth looking at. This is new, the aspect ratio stuff. When did this get introduced? This got introduced in '89. So this is relatively new. But maybe we could use this stuff instead. Food for thought. Food for thought. All right, I'm going to call it there. My brain's falling apart. Hey, thank you so much for watching episode 274 of The Joy of Coding. I hope that was interesting. I'm hoping that next week maybe I'll have this background removal thing working, and then, you know, you don't have this box, this weird box around me. Yeah, let me know what you thought. Also, I'm using... Is it tracking me still? Hi, hello, can you see me? I'm over here now. Okay. I'm using a new set of headphones and a new microphone. So it's all new equipment, all new stuff. How is it? Is it working out? Let me know. You can give me feedback on the Rate This Episode form and tell me how ridiculous mathematics for aspect ratio is. All right. And with that, I will call it. Thank you again so much for watching episode 274 of The Joy of Coding. I hope that was interesting. And I will see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye. Hold on. I got to get Wacky Morning DJ queued up. Take care. Bye-bye.
The joy of coding.
See ya.